Hey, okay, let it be known. I'm working hard when I ain't on the phone. This ain't a home, this ain't a foe. Grind never stopping.
Hello and welcome to Top Gear India. My name is Gavin Rodriguez, and today we find ourselves in the beautiful city of Bengaluru with this beautiful weather to go with. And what do we have with us? We have the Oben Rorr. Now, Oben is a German word, and Rorr, well, it's a little ironic given that it's an EV and it makes no noise. But here we are, in the flesh. Now, you guys have probably already seen the walk around videos and are well aware of the styling, but so I'm not going to waste your time with that. But there are a few things that I'd like to point out, aesthetically speaking, that I personally like. Well, for starters, even though this motorcycle looks a little bit like the CB300, I gotta say, this lime yellow color looks beautiful. It really makes this bike pop. And I love the way it plays with lime yellow, black and silver. I think the color combination is quite cool. Given the fact that it's an EV, as you can see, most of the design here is very clutter-free and very minimal. I mean, there is no exhaust, of course. There is no catalytic converter. So as you can see, the rear wheel is like really free, and most of the weight of the bike lies in the front. It gives it quite a unique stance, and I think it looks quite cool. In fact, we got a lot of eyes on the road today, and we actually had a considerable amount of people walk up to us and ask us. Everybody knew it was an EV on first sight, but they were curious about what it was. So I think when it comes to styling, Oben has really hit it out the park. Now that we got the styling out of the way, let's talk about the ergonomics. So, it's quite easy to swing your leg over. The tank is quite narrow, so it's easy to have your legs on the ground and around the tank. And the seat is a little firm, but from my experience so far in the little riding that we've done thus far, it's been quite supportive. So I don't really think it should be such a problem. Now, the riding position. So you're sitting relatively upright, and as you'd expect from a commuter, it's a comfortable position to be in, and it's quite commanding, so it makes it easy to maneuver the bike. But I would have to spend some more time with it on the road before I can tell you just how comfortable or uncomfortable it feels. So stick around for a couple more seconds.
This ain't a home, this ain't a foe. Grind never stopping, I'm keeping it cold. Unlocking the door with the holy keys.
Now that I've taken a break, I can tell you a little bit more about this motorcycle in the real world. So, all of Oben's claims aside, in reality, this motorcycle is a lot of fun to ride. It's got a lot of punch, the brakes feel really good. I mean, okay, let's not fast forward here. Let's go at it one at a time. So, to starters, let's talk about the drivetrain. Now, there are three modes that you can pick. There's Eco, there's City, and there's Havoc. So, in Eco mode, it reduces consumption and locks your speed limit to about 50-51 kilometers per hour. In City, you're locked at about 70-71 kilometers per hour. And in Havoc, you get full blown and your speedometer is locked at about 105 kilometers per hour. So, did I manage to achieve 105 kilometers per hour? Yes. In fact, I managed to achieve 106 kilometers per hour. And it came with little to no effort out of this motorcycle. And I would be willing to guess that maybe this battery actually has a little more potential than Oben would allow it to. But they restrict it for safety reasons and to contain heat. But take that away and this motorcycle is a hoot. It has so much punch. I mean, like you know electric vehicles are. It goes just like that. I had a whole bunch of vehicles with me on the street, and all I had to do is twist my throttle for 4 seconds and lose them without any effort whatsoever. In that sense, kudos to Oben for achieving what they said they would. Now, let me talk about the brakes. The braking quality is really good. It inspires confidence. It stops in a dime. And they also have like a sort of combi braking system going on. There's no ABS on offer, but I don't think you'd necessarily find the need for it because the brakes have solid enough bite and the tires do a good enough job maintaining grip. Well, for the most part. We didn't really get to try them in wet roads. As you can tell, it began raining afterwards. We didn't really have a lot of wet riding to do. But on the dry conditions that we did ride them, the tires were really good and they cornered pretty well. So again, another plus point in their coat. Now, let's talk about ride quality. The suspension is stiff and you might feel like the ride quality is going to be jarring, but the moment you get going, I didn't find it jarring at all. In fact, what I got was composure. And there was oodles of composure from the motorcycle. Never once did it feel like, oh, I was wobbling about too much. No, it remained taut, it remained composed, and I quite enjoyed it. So ride quality, again, another thumbs up from me. Now ergonomics. As I suspected, the hard seat wasn't really a problem to me, at least in the 2-3 hour riding that I did, it wasn't really that much of a hassle for me whatsoever. But to people out there who are used to cushier, softer seats, maybe Oben will have an accessory replacement for you. But for the most of you out there with a skinny ass like mine, I had no problem whatsoever. So I doubt that you guys would, especially the thicker ones of you out there. Now, as I said earlier, most of the bike's weight is focused in the front, and you would imagine that this would make it quite front heavy. And it does for a very small degree. But the moment you get going and you get used to the dimensions and the weight of this motorcycle, it stops bothering you. So I didn't really find that hard. In fact, I was, for lack of a better word, riding a little bit like a hooligan in the city today, just because of the amount of power that I had on tap. And the suspension did a great job. The maneuverability was pretty easy. Once you get used to the weight, it's quite easy to maneuver and dart and twist around cars and vehicles and tight traffic. So I don't think you should have any trouble around bumper to bumper traffic. Now, one thing that I did notice was that the turning radius on the Oben Rorr is a little tight. Now, if you're someone who frequents mall parkings or office parkings or just generally have a very congested parking space or frequent congested parking spaces or congested spaces in general, this can be a little bit of an issue because you will find yourself taking 3-point turns or sometimes even 4-point turns, given that the tight radius. But if you don't find that as a deal breaker, if you don't find yourself in those congested spaces that often, then I don't think this would bother you so much. Because again, I only noticed it when I was getting in and out of tight parking spots. But if that wasn't the case, then yeah, it's not really that bothersome, honestly. Now, the Oben Rorr comes with a 4.47 kilowatt battery pack, and this has a peak output of 10 kilowatts. This, personally, I found it more than sufficient, and to my testing today, Oben has a claimed range of 200 kilometers, but in the real world, I would say it's closer to 150 kilometers or 120 kilometers, which I think is more than sufficient for anyone that's just primarily looking at this motorcycle for just commuting. If you are planning to go to and fro from your workplace and back home, then I don't think you should have any problem whatsoever. Plus, it comes with a 15 amp socket that's built into the tank. So as long as you have a 3-point charging socket anywhere, right, just plug it out, plug it in, get back to whatever you were doing, and leave it for 2 hours and it'll charge. So in that sense, again, kudos from my end.
Ay, okay, let it be known. I'm working hard when I ain't on the phone. This ain't a home, this ain't a phone. Grind never stopping, I'm keeping it.
Now, what are my final thoughts about this? Well, Oben really has put their money where their mouth is, and when it comes to the drivetrain, I have no issues whatsoever. In fact, I'm quite impressed by what it can do. However, when it comes to build quality, there are certain things that you can notice if you get up close. Like, for example, the paint and the plastic quality can be a little iffy. The display isn't bright enough. The software can have minor little glitches. But these things aren't exactly deal breakers because these are things that the manufacturer can fix over time. And from what I've been told by Oben, they're working really hard to fix this within the coming 2 months. So, what can I say? As it is, I feel like it's got great potential and it's capable of so much. So I'm only looking forward to what Oben's planning to do. And Oben claims that in the next 6 months, in every 6 months for the next 2 years, they're going to have a new motorcycle for a new segment. So I have a lot to look forward to, and they've got my hopes up, you know, like the name suggests, my hopes are high. So I really hope they deliver. So if you're on the market looking for a petrol alternative or are just bored with your 150cc motorcycle, I would definitely recommend checking out the Oben Rorr. Because when it comes to commuting to and fro from your workplace back home, I feel like this really does the job and then some. I'm not too sure if I'd be very comfortable taking it outside the city yet, given that India's EV infrastructure is still growing. But once it's there, why not? It could definitely do it, especially given that 2 hours of charging time. Oben claims that you can get 1 kilometer of range per minute of charge. So yeah, I see no reason why you should not consider this. Prices for this motorcycle start at an ex-showroom price of 1 lakh in Maharashtra, but in states like Telangana, Karnataka or Tamil Nadu, you can see it go as high as 1,24,000, which I think puts it on par with a lot of 150cc motorcycles. So if you're on the market for it, definitely go for it. I'm quite impressed by it, and I hope that when you get your first test ride, you are too. This is Gavin Rodriguez signing off.
I can't break, that's the thing.